day.
7 minutes after 9. How are you? Welcome to the final hour of The Situation. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. We're always glad that you are tuned in, always happy that you're here with us every single day from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. live on Spice FM, on KTN, on YouTube and Facebook and X and TikTok and Radio Garden, everywhere. Conversations happen live and they continue happening even long after we have finished with that conversation. So you'll find all our recordings on YouTube. If you just go to Spice FM, that's the channel, just go search Spice FM. You will find the recordings for each and every day's conversation. You can also find them on YouTube, right? And we are glad that every time we have these conversations, people share them and people enjoy them. So, Ndu, now getting into the final hour of the show, but we have to continuously start thinking about, money and building wealth. Money building wealth. And there's one bank that has been voted many times over as the best bank when it comes to private banking. And what is private banking? We've asked ourselves before. What is private banking?
What basically is that, nobody has to know, you don't have to be in the hall waiting with 1,000 other people, that when it comes to the things that you want to be able to do, how you want to grow your wealth, what you want to invest in, that you can have that within the confines of your mind and that of what they are calling a world-renowned or world-class financial advisor. So it's your business with somebody else and not just everybody getting into it. So there are ways in which you can bank wisely. There are ways in which you can leave a legacy. There are ways in which you can live joyfully, and you can also plan wisely. And this is with Stanbic Bank. It's Kenya's #1 private bank, making sure that everything you do with growing, creating, and managing your wealth is actually done in a way that you would be able to benefit from in the future.
Very good. Today is Monday. It's the first of 5 days, and at the end of the 5 days, we give away 25,000 shillings to one person into their Stanbic Bank account. What do they need to do?
They need to tell us how they're going to engage around those 4 principles of banking, living, investing, and living a legacy. Tell us how you do that with your Stanbic account, or how you plan to do that should you open a Stanbic account. But then you need to do that before Friday. Let us know then how you plan to do that, and you could win 25,000 shillings into your account this weekend.
Yes. So today is the 25th of November. Friday was the 22nd of November, and as we always know, on Fridays the Kenya Gazette is published. And on this one, the Gazette notice number 15372, we had one special announcement. The Constitution of Kenya 2010, pursuant to Article 129, as read together with Article 138 and 138 of the Constitution of Kenya 2010, it is notified for the information of the general public that Andrew Okia Omtata Okoiti, the Senator of the Republic of Kenya, elected by the great people of Busia County, has established a presidential exploratory committee. The committee's primary objective is to gather, analyze, evaluate, and act on information on the viability of the Senator's presidential bid for the August 2027 general election. Hey, I've never heard of anything. I have been there during very many presidential campaigns, never seen anything like this. But the Senator is here. Senator, good morning.
Good morning.
How are you doing?
I'm fine.
Yeah.
You've
taken us very far, Bwana. Is this thing in the Constitution of Kenya really that you have put? In fact, we'll open it at Article 129, right together with Article 138. We'll talk about that, but welcome. Siti, did you know that you can form a presidential, not working party on education, but a presidential exploratory committee?
Yeah, no, task forces.
Yeah, task forces.
Yeah, this one is new.
Hey.
But that's a good thing. By the end of this conversation, I'll be thoroughly informed.
Welcome to the modern era.
This is it, eh?
Yeah.
This is a modern Kenya.
Yeah, the new republic has arrived.
Let's go to the kingdom, not the republic, of Eswatini.
Yes. And the proverb. The antelope that is constantly moving will fall into a pit.
The antelope that is constantly moving will fall into a pit. Senator, what's your interpretation of this proverb?
Well, there's consequences to actions. Yeah, for every action, there's a consequence. So basically, they're saying that in less colorful words, somebody told us one time that choices have consequences. So the land is never even. So if you are constantly moving, first of all, you have got no purpose. You are directionless.
Hii ni kutangatanga.
You have no goal. And so basically, if you choose to have no goal in life, you end up in failure.
So this is constantly moving. To you here, you interpret it as just loitering, roaming about.
It's not even grazing.
Not even grazing.
The Swahili phrase manga manga.
Kumanga manga kutangatanga. It's like what the devil was doing by the time he came back, and God asked him, "Hey, where have you been? You're sweating, you're panting." Silikuwa nazurura huko nje. Did you see my good man called who? Job. Like, that guy, leave him alone. You favor him all the time. What would you like to tempt him? Then he faced it. I am opening Chapter 9 of the Constitution of Kenya, Principles and Structures of the National Executive. Article 129 has many things. It's the principles of executive authority. Executive authority derives from the people of Kenya and shall be exercised in accordance with this Constitution. Executive authority shall be exercised in a manner compatible with the principle of service to the people of Kenya and for their well-being and benefit. Now let's read that one together with Article 138. I'm going to scroll down. 138. Procedure of a presidential election. If only one candidate for president is nominated, that candidate shall be declared elected. If two or more are nominated, an election shall be held in each constituency. In a presidential election, all persons registered as voters for the purposes of parliamentary elections are entitled to vote. The poll shall be taken by secret ballot, and after counting the votes in the polling stations, the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission shall tally and verify the count and declare the result. So basically, this is giving us the procedure for electing a president. So we are looking at the principles of executive authority and the way to
Acquire it.
Yes. And you're saying that using those two, you have formed a presidential exploratory committee.
Yes.
Now that one is nowhere in the Constitution.
So
What's that? What's that one?
That one is a process. The environment calls for me to stand for president. And I said I'm a realist. Let me give it some people who are detached from me to give me an objective opinion on the viability of the calls that are coming. So it has been a process, and I also believe that the country needs to be put back on the rails. Yeah. Today, when you sing the national anthem of Kenya, you are singing about a different country. If you listen to the words, you are not describing this country. You are talking about a country that doesn't exist. And so we want to get back and sing that national anthem so that it can resonate with the reality on the ground.
Okay. So, Senator, I have to ask you, is it an inherent desire that you have to be president of Kenya? Or is it because the different ideas that have floated to you from different quarters, and I'm sure that they have been numerous, to say do this because of how we have seen you have operated over the last few years, and they said, okay, well, these guys might have a point, let me try. Which is it?
Well, my inherent desire, and the biggest desire I have, is to be a good citizen. Now, that good citizen requires good service. And my drive is to see that this country provides service that the citizens of this country deserve. And so I've always taken on a challenge whenever I've been. And even some of my biggest achievements were on very small challenges, like when we had the Butere girls being banned from doing a play. I didn't just sit in Nairobi. I took it up, and I made sure those guys went to court, got very good orders from Justice Majanja, the late. May the Lord rest his soul in peace. And the kids were able to go to Mombasa and perform. And the reason was I believe in freedom of expression. And so, when it comes to what needs to be done. Right now, I'm seeing that the challenge this country is facing, just like the small thing that Butera was having, was bad governance. So right now, there's total state capture in this country, and it calls on each one of us to do what we can to achieve that. I've tried in the courts, and what moved me the other day to realize that this thing maybe cannot be won within the courts was the judgment the Supreme Court gave the other day, where the Constitution says very clearly that the budget should have estimates of revenue and estimates of expenditure. High Court agreed, Court of Appeal agrees, Supreme Court says no. Supreme Court decides to write a judgment that basically says your Constitution is just a piece of paper. And when I began interrogating it, I looked at the Supreme Court Act, and I found that through some mischief, Parliament had given it the power that we can consider political whatever, consider whatever. Yet Article 2, Clause 4 of the Constitution is very clear that anything against this Constitution is null and void. So I realized that the fight is to implement the Constitution. And there's no better place to do that than from the presidency. It's the Constitution or nothing. Implement the Constitution, and we have three broad goals that I'm trying to push for. They are very, very simple. But they are simple in the nature that they are transformative. So basically, we have got what we call economic and social reforms. Notice we are not doing anything about law reforms. Economic and social reforms. And that is one, is to enforce constitutionalism, including the rule of law. That must happen. The law must apply to everybody and to every transaction. Number two, we must institute fiscal discipline to fix the shaky public finances and structures, including the elimination of corruption and wastage. And wastage, you can even look at the structure of government. Why do you have 24 ministries? I've had a group of experts who have worked over time and produced a structure of government that has only 14 ministries. And this country will run very well. Why wasting all that money having another 8 ministries over and above that? But what we also be looking at, and when we clean up, we have also looked at, if you look at Article 225, Clause 1 of the Constitution, it requires the Treasury to be established as an independent institution. One of the major policy things we have to do is to get the Treasury established like the central bank, run by experts, and the politicians have no access to public money at the whim. The president should not walk anywhere and then to entertain people say, PS, where are you? Milioni 200 ingie kwa hii mradi. Is it in the budget? We must restore the budget as the primary tool of government policy. If it's important, it will be in the budget. If it's not important, it will be outside the budget.
So at the time, for example, we're already, so the budgeting system began in September, right? So what you're saying essentially is that all these things that we see last weekend, 5 million to a church, weekend before that, 2 million for a school.
By the time Rudi ufungue shule, hii barabara itakuwa imemalizika.
Those things have to go.
All of those things, you're saying, if it is not in this budget, like we started in September, going on and finishing at the time we come to June, then forget it.
Forget it. Even this borrowing, you hear the IMF is giving people money. This country does not belong to a president. The people have passed a budget, and in that budget, there's no provision for a loan from IMF. For heaven's sake, what is this loan doing? Where is this money going? Domestic borrowing is not in the budget. Why are we borrowing? So the budget must be restored as the primary tool of governance in this country. And if you want to see equity in the country, let us look at the budget. What is being allocated to this region? What is being allocated to what? You will see equity. You don't have to go to the ground. Let us see where the money is going. Then you cannot follow the money. Anything else is out. So and to do that, to get that discipline, we must go to the Constitution and separate the Treasury from the Ministry of Finance. Let the Ministry of Finance do the policy things and whatever, but the boss of the Treasury, the National Treasurer, should be like the governor of the Central Bank. Autonomous, he receives the money from the Kenya Revenue Authority or from the loans that have been borrowed. It goes in that account. Parliament appropriates that money how it is supposed to be used. The controller of budget supervises the use. Then you have accountability. The president waits for your paycheck at the end of the month. When you are traveling,
you apply for...
You go whatever you want to do, but you don't go there and begin promising goodies. There are no goodies. The goodies must be in the budget. So that we restore the place of parliament to begin with.
That is fiscal discipline.
Fiscal discipline.
So,
and then corruption, people have to be punished. And what has been stolen has to be recovered. If you look at some of the money that has been stolen and taken out of this country, if it was in a wealth fund, it was also another thing we must institute. If you look at Article 201, Clause D, Clause C, not D, Clause C, we need to save for the future. People are mining gold today, people are mining whatever, and they are taking things out. What will their future generations depend on in this country? So we must have a tax system. In Norway, minerals are taxed at 78% to go to the sovereign wealth. Here, people are just playing with minerals. They call it artisan, whatever. We must come back and do a resource map of this country and make it public for everyone to know what are the resources we have. And then we must come up with an agenda of transforming those resources into wealth. The ultimate purpose of a leader is to convert resources into wealth. Right now, if you look at our per capita GDP, is 1,900 US dollars. It's fallen down to 200. It was 2,000 a few years ago. It's now 1,900. Kenya should be able to be at 30,000 US dollars per capita. The question should be to a leader, how do we get there? Not this is a Samburu, this is a Somali, this is a Kikuyu, this is a Luya, this is a Luo. No. The question is, how do you move Kenyans from about 2,000 US dollars per year, per capita, to $30,000 US? How do you work there?
3 million, earning 3 million per year.
Per year.
Per person.
Yeah.
Yes.
In this country of ours.
Yes, the resources are there. Because if you look at the ministers, even that day Banti says that 2 billion is being stolen. It's become like a joke. And there are no consequences to that. Then if you are losing 2 billion and you want to auction Jomo Kenyatta for 34 billion, what are you for about 100 and what? What are you who are you
doing?
Why don't you get those 2 billion over 1 month and pay off the debt?
I think that some of these things, when they are not set out into the open, is then we are not able to embrace the possibility of their reality.
Yeah.
So I would like to look at some of those things that you talk about.
Now,
That should
let me
be
go to
done
number
as a leader.
3.
But what I want to ask you, if I may, before you go to the number 3, why was it necessary then for you to institute an exploratory committee to then look at your viability for candidacy? Why? Other people will just stand up and say, look, man, I want to be president. Let's go.
Because one thing we are doing is that I'm not a messiah. I don't want to present myself like a messiah for anything. I'm not selling Omtata. I want to sell an agenda. And among those things that people are going to do, or that committee is going to do, is to help develop a vehicle and a policy framework that from day one, if it's implemented, we get this country back on the rails. And behind that committee is a very big secretariat of volunteers in various fields who are working out to try and develop a policy framework so that when you sing that national anthem of the Republic of Kenya, you can see Kenya on the ground. Not singing like you are praying to a dead god.
Okay, point number 3
Yes.
before we take the break. So the first one was economic and social reforms.
No, the first was constitutionalism and the rule of law. And they feed into each other.
Okay.
Once you enforce the rule of law, like I've just shown you, are separating the treasury and doing all these institutions. Then your physical discipline begins becoming possible. Once you get that physical discipline proper in place, you release money. And then this money is now going to deal with the elimination of poverty.
Okay.
And we want to look at 4 key areas.
So let's go again. So first, enforce constitutionalism and the rule of law.
Yes.
B, fiscal discipline. C?
Yes. Physical discipline, we want to make sure that public money is controlled and it's used for the benefit of the common good.
Okay.
And to eliminate corruption and wastage.
And eliminating that, that's part of the physical discipline. Now, number 3, now you have the money. You have secured this money.
Yes.
You now want to address the questions of poverty. Okay? And the immediate things within that area, you want to address the question of food. The food industry. Liberated from cartels completely. Restore institutions that used to allow farmers to control the industry. Restore things like extension workers. Restore things like they used to call veterinary officers, stuff like that. Restore the agricultural farms that were used for research and for development or whatever. Restore the quarantine areas. So you can also begin to export meat and things like those. So you're going to deal with that in agriculture. But ultimately, the ultimate goal is that agriculture should not be the mainstay of the economy. Agriculture should ultimately become for producing food for Kenyans. The mainstay of the economy has to go into the service industry. We must build factories, we must industrialize. Then you go to the question of health. People are chapping around saying universal health care. You cannot run universal health care on private hospitals. The public hospitals have collapsed. There must be a restoration of universal health care. And in the health sector, you must address the question of the medical human resource. Look at all the disharmony we are having in the medical sector. The doctors are on the streets, what have you. You know, during the review process, when they were making this new constitution, there had been a proposal, and it was in the harmonized draft that went to Naivasha, to form a national health commission, like a teacher service commission, to deal with the human resource for health at the national level. When it went to Naivasha, the parliamentary committee removed that, but made an undertaking on 2 things. That by legislation, they would establish that commission to be able to address the human resource issue in health. And it's very important so that doctors can have the freedom to move around. They can be like the teachers are paid centrally. You can have them transferred various to gain different experience. You can put scarce resources at critical centers so that the referrals are there. Not trying to have very, very expensive personnel at every point in every county. So that human commission must be brought back. We must first of all contain the turmoil within the human resource in the health sector. Now, but we need to do also simple things like there's a lot of theft of government stores. Go back and brand them. When I was growing up, I could swallow a Panadol with the word GOK on it. Today, you can't see those things. We need to go back and brand government stores to eliminate the theft that is happening there. We need now to invest in the sector, make public hospitals as good as any. That's when you can begin talking of universal health care. Universal health care on private hospitals is just an extortion scheme. The private hospitals will just chew up that money, and the insurance will remain with nothing. I've seen like the NHIF having very heavy bills, although there was some corruption in it also. But most of the corruption was driven by these private hospitals. So if the government can set up its own institutions, and basically what I'm saying as policy here is that the government must go back to be a provider of goods and services. We cannot allow the private sector to be subsidizing the government. Let the private sector compete with the best that the government is offering. Not that the private sector thrives because the government has failed. So if you can ensure universal health care at the hospitals that the government has, give the basic and the basic that you require, you will find that the cost of running health care will go down, the insurance schemes will run well. But to try and do what they are trying to do, like even the share, whatever, but the hospitals that are working are private hospitals. We are heading nowhere. So we go to the foundation, we fix the health. The other thing is education. This money that is liberated should be channeled to the public education sector. Restore the public schools. And offer taxpayer-funded education in public schools from primary at least to secondary school, if possible the first degree. But primary to secondary school must be taxpayer-funded because education is so key to this country, we can't ignore it. Our best brains may not be born may not necessarily be born in the richest families. They could be languishing somewhere in Marsabit. They could be languishing somewhere in Busia, somewhere, wherever. Those brains should be able to be there, to be given an opportunity to get to the school system and move.
Okay, let's take a break.
So that is
education.
Yeah.
Okay, let's take a break. 26 minutes to 10. The senator from Busia County says he's a senator in the Senate of the Republic of Kenya. Voted for by the people of Busia. To represent them to represent the whole country in the Senate. Sawa. Senator Okiya Mtata is our guest this morning, and we're talking about his thinking behind the formation of a presidential exploratory committee, a 10-member team. That why did you have to establish it? That's the question that Ndu asked you. Why? And why even put it in the Gazette notice? What's the requirement? There's no requirement for you to do any of those things that you're doing. What's the thinking behind it? We'll continue this conversation shortly. Keep it here.
This is the
Accept